You snoozed twice this morning, spilled your coffee once, and you've already blamed last night's referee for your morning mood.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
It's time to embrace the chaos and step into the madness.
Bro, you about to see a side of me you didn't even know existed.
Featuring guests who are over-caffeinated and less reasonable than the average person.
Man, I think it's just ridiculous.
Come on, man. Are you serious? Ugh.
Fans, where else would you rather be than right here, right now? Welcome to the show.
So buckle up. It's time for hot takes and hot mics. This is the Morning Rant, where the only thing more unpredictable is Dave before his third cup of coffee.
I just felt like running.
On WPGY, the Sports Pig.
What's up, North Georgia? It's a Winging It Wednesday right here on the Morning Rant. Dave Garner with you till 11 o'clock this morning. Again, Chuck Oliver coming up a little bit later on right here on the Sports Pig. This is the Morning Rant. Winging It Wednesday brought to you by our friends at Foundation Wealth in Dalton. Again, Joel, Eric, Dakota, the team over there, ready to take care of you. We appreciate those guys being on board with us right here, and appreciate my co-host, John Davis, in studio this morning with us right here at our Carriage Kia Studios. What's up, partner?
Great to be here.
Yeah, looking forward to it. We got a lot to talk about over this next hour, a lot of ground to cover. It's going to be a lot of fun. Of course, the World Baseball Classic last night not really playing out the way that we had hoped it would, especially for Team USA. But nonetheless, it's been a good 2-week run or so, if you will. We're going to talk a little free agency, a little bit of football news, too, as far as scheduling coming up. Of course, earlier in the week, you and I were here on Monday, John. We were talking about, high school basketball, a lot of big things, of course, happening. A couple, area teams winning state championships. It was exciting to see. Talking about the culmination of all that hard work as part of our hoop dream. So we're going to, continue to dive into that and give credit where credit's due. But again, man, it's already been a busy morning for me. I had to run to your hometown of LJ this morning, and had to pop on the Sherry Martin show, the Sherry Show on ETC3, the local TV station there. And so I came back here on two wheels this morning to meet with you so we could get in here and do our show that we're excited to bring you right here once again, the Morning Rant on the home of ESPN Radio in North Georgia. But man, how's your morning been so far, man?
Wonderful. Traffic was great. Just a nice little solid ride. I picked up WLJA right up north of Woodstock, and so it was a nice ride.
There we go. I like it, man. And once again, man, you're sporting that tech gear, man. I love it. I love it.
Everywhere I go, got to support them.
How many different combinations of things do you have?
Well, I've got a good buddy down at Georgia Tech who is in the manager of the team, and so he plays in my golf tournament, and so we kind of trade and switch some things out for goods, but he's been taking care of me for about 6 or 7 years. So I've got all types of jackets, sweats, shirts, you name it. I'm literally dressed in Georgia Tech every day. Now that I'm retired and don't have to wear any pants or anything, I'm good to go.
Well, fortunately, you're wearing pants today.
Yeah,
so
exactly. Exactly.
So no, and no, it's always great to see you in the tech gear, and we appreciate, of course, you being here. And it's one of the I've got some allergy issues, so I'm going to do my best this morning not to cough all over everything here in the studio. It's just, it's one of those things where the weather's changing a little bit. It was warm, then it got cold again these last couple of days. Now it's going to get warm again this weekend. So again, my spring allergies, I feel like I just got done with the fall allergies.
Yeah, no,
and now here I am in the spring.
No, I hate it too because I have it more in the fall, so I'm good in the spring. But yeah, you're right, because it was warm, and then have this little cold break, and then I think it's going to be 80, 85 on Saturday and Sunday. So it's all over the place.
Yeah, it's already been a busy week. We got a busy weekend coming up. We're winging Rock Fest, of course, in Canton at the Etowah River Park. We hope to see everyone out there Saturday and Sunday. Both stations, of course, the Sports Pig, the tent. I think we're going to be handling a lot of the registration for the wing eating contest. So again, a lot of the folks that are going to be taking part in that, I think they're going to limit it to about 12 a day Saturday, and then again on Sunday. I think that's right around 12:45 or so. I think I'll have the opportunity to probably MC that. I know they're wanting people to do some stuff up on stage. And then our sister station, 101.1 The Pulse, they're going to have their tent set up right next to the Sports Pig tent, and they'll be on air a good bit of the afternoon. Again, our friends over there down the hall doing their thing. But we're excited about it, man. I mean, 20 different wing establishments, including the Anchor Bar, the original original Buffalo wing recipe, located in Buffalo, and now they franchised out. We got one right here in Kennesaw, just down the road where the old Fuddruckers was at, is the Anchor Bar there. So I think they're sponsoring the wing eating competition, but looking forward to it, man. It's going to be a lot of fun.
I am too. I was telling your partner a few minutes ago, we used to come up, and Julia used to play a little bit of a beach volleyball tournament at that park. Yeah. And I remember having vendors and things like that. And I thought, I wonder if, what this was, and if the Buffalo Wing Fest is something new, I guess, in the last few years. So I'm looking forward to coming up, and I am a wing aficionado. So I'll try a few just to give my 2 cents worth.
I think that's the best kind of aficionado to be. Is a wing. It's an event right up our alley for sure. And so we were looking too. One of the things we're going to do, and you and I were talking before we came on the show about, we're going to have a phone number. We're going to have some different things that we're going to add over the next couple of weeks right here on the show to be able to give away tickets. I mean, we got a lot of things coming up. We have a direct, and I'll let the cat out of the bag on this. We have a direct hookup, if you will, with America's Amphitheater over in Alpharetta, the Alpharetta Amphitheater. And so we've got, all the concerts. I mean, everything that's playing in Alpharetta this year, in some way, shape, or form, we have the ability to give away tickets to do different things. So, I'm looking down the list of concerts that we're going to be promoting this year. We've got everything from, Dave Matthews to Motley Crue, to Chicago and Styx to Weird Al Yankovic. I mean, we've got a lot of things. So, again, you're going to want to keep it locked right here because we are going to be giving away tickets to some of these shows over the next couple months. A lot of that begins in May. We're calling it our summer-long tour. Again, our sister station, 101.1 The Pulse, and also right here, WPGY, the Sports Pig. We're going to be giving a lot of things away. So it's going to be an exciting time.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, so a big show here today. We were talking about the U.S. Baseball Classic, of course, last night wrapping up, and it was Team Venezuela. Vamos, Venezuela. They get it done over Team USA. What a heartbreaker. We rallied back. It didn't look like we were going to score it all. A little bit of a different lineup last night for Mark DeRosa. And again, may have thrown things off a little bit. Bryce Harper with the big shot, in the game to kind of get, tied up and everything. But it was Venezuela that ended up winning. And again, Ronald Acuna of our Atlanta Braves, part of that team as well. Several, of course, major leaguers. But yeah, man, your initial thoughts, a little bit of disappointment right here in the culmination of it.
I caught the last 4 or 5 innings of it, and the baseball aside, because I love to watch it, but I can't tell you the names and everything. A few things that I did notice. The pitching for Venezuela was just unbelievable.
Yeah,
I mean, they were
superb.
it reminded me of Greg Maddux, those pitchers, because they were placing the balls, and it just looked like the USA hitters were just lost. But Bryce Harper got him back on, and obviously they couldn't hold out to get the win. But I'll tell you something, they talk about sports on a worldwide basis.
Right.
And if anything, last night showed that baseball, I think, is way above the NFL when it comes to worldwide,
to global,
the global audience and everything, because that wasn't even World Series experience. That was just like 10 steps above what you would think a World Series would be, just to see the passion in those, the players and everything, but to look at the fans and just, jumping all up and down on both sides, of each other, and just the camaraderie of the nations and everything. And I just, really I just sat there and watched it, and just enjoyed everything, the baseball you hate to see happen. Congratulations to Venezuela, but just to see the overall picture was fantastic.
Yeah, first ever championship of the World Baseball Classic for Venezuela. Their first. Team USA had been to the semis, I think, or maybe the championship last 3 times there, but Venezuela pulled it out, and now everybody gets to return back to their spring training homes for at least another week and a half or so before we start the regular season for the Atlanta Braves. That's next Friday. So again, the rest of the week, tomorrow and Friday, we're going to dive into a little bit more Braves news as we get set for opening day coming up here in the next couple weeks. Yeah, I think that baseball was always kind of America's pastime. That's kind of what it was known as. But I would argue, and I agree with you, on a world scale, I think baseball, because you have so many different athletes playing it around the world, I would argue, though, and I know you're a football guy like I am, that American football has kind of become the new pastime to a certain extent, as far as popularity goes with the United States.
Well, you're exactly right. And I think what Roger Goodell, even though I'm not a fan of his, what he's done is he's brought it onto the stage. I was part of the teams that we played in Berlin one year, and we played in London another year. They're going to Australia, I believe. They're going to Spain, Italy. They're going to Mexico. They're trying to build it up over there, and there are fan bases over there. And my offensive line coach from Georgia Tech, Mac McWhorter, he's actually going over to coach in the I guess they call it the World Football League with Rhein in Germany. So he's been taking trips every year coaching. I mean, he's retired. He and his wife Becky get to go over there and enjoy the sights and sounds. He gets to coach football, which he loves doing, and he's a great coach. And so they're trying to pick it up. And I remember back when I played, they really were bringing up, and it started more at youth, and trying to teach them to build on a bigger scale. And then you would start to see their semi-pro teams, and it's like, okay, we really need to start with the youth, because when you're never around it, you don't know what to do. But and it gave us a great teaching opportunity for these kids when we'd go over there. So it is building. It's building more and more. I don't like the idea of the NFL going worldwide. I just don't think it's.
That was my next question for you. I was going to ask that, kind of your thoughts on them playing so many overseas games.
I think the players hate it, and I don't care what anybody says. The players absolutely hate it because you lose 2 weeks during the season and everything. And some of these, I think Jacksonville just stayed over there and played 2 straight games over there.
They did, yeah.
And I just can't think of anything worse. Football is an American sport. Soccer is a global sport. Football is an American sport. Yes, let's grow in other areas, but you're never going to produce an NFL in Europe. You're never going to produce an NFL in, Asia. You're just not going to do it. And so, tone it back a little bit. Football players we're a strange creature because our habits are hard because we want to play at 1:00 on Sunday afternoon. We want to know what's going on 7 days a week.
Oh yeah,
and that's basically was my whole life playing football.
Yeah, it's a routine.
I had a routine from 5th grade to when I retired, and I don't want that routine being bothered. Like everybody might say, "Oh, this is good. This is good." Listen, as much as you like playing on Monday night, it still screws your whole body up, and you're just not. It's just it takes you a while mentally to get into it. That might be hard for people to understand, but when you're programmed to do a certain thing for so many years, you just don't want anything to mess the whole thing up.
Right, and we're gonna continue this conversation on the other side of a break because there's some news out there too about possibly adding another night during the week to the NFL season, at least throughout a few of the weeks there. So we're going to talk about that and expand a little bit more on what we're talking about right here in this second segment. Hey, you're joining us right here on a Winging It Wednesday right here on the Morning Rant. This is the home of ESPN Radio in North Georgia on the Sports Pig app and online at sportspigradio.com.
Grand Slam! 98.1 and 93.7 The Sports Pig, the official home for the Atlanta Braves baseball.
Tired of shouting your business's name into the void and getting nothing but crickets? Your brand deserves more than awkward billboard glances and flyers lining bird cages. Right now, listeners are hearing me ramble on instead of your ad. That's a touchdown for missed opportunities and a fumble for your wallet.
Recovered, Atlanta. Game over.
Your ad could be here, making fans laugh, cheer, and most importantly, call you. Go to sportspigradio.com or call 678-454-9552 and get your business off the bench and into the game.
Morning Grind with Pork Rinds.
Welcome to the show.
It's the Morning Rant, weekday mornings from 10 to 11 on 98.1, 93.7, and 101.1 on the H2 dial. WPGY, the Sports Pig.
Winging It Wednesday right here with Dave Garner and John Davis till 11 o'clock this morning right here on the Morning Rant here on the home of ESPN Radio in North Georgia. It's a Winging It Wednesday. We hope you had a great St. Patty's Day yesterday. Again, the pub in LJ open till 2 a.m., so there may be some people out there still recovering, but nonetheless, we hope you had your best green garb on yesterday and enjoyed a successful and safe, again, St. Patty's Day in the local area. John, you and I were talking before the break about the NFL and the scheduling and, of course, them playing a lot of games overseas, things like that. One of the things we were talking about was the opening week and what that's going to look like. And you were talking about how the players, typically they're not a fan of, the overseas, the midweek type games. But speaking of midweek, I mean, you and I were talking, man. It looks like there's a Wednesday game.
Well, I read it, this past week and noticed that they're playing in Australia on September 9th. Now, you and I were just discussing because of the time change and everything and it being on a Wednesday, it's actually Thursday, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, just because of the way of the clock.
And so, but I can only, Seattle's going to be in it. I don't know who the other, I would imagine somebody out west will
another
be on
West Coast team, I would think. Yeah.
But I can only imagine what the players are thinking about because, as you said earlier, your bye weeks start to come into play. So if you're going to Australia to play on a Wednesday, nobody wants to have a bye week the second week of the season.
Right, yeah.
Because that just, you count on those, your 6th, 7th, and 8th week for the injured players and everything. So it'll be interesting to see what they do. I know that they're keeping adding, and as I said, I think it's good for the game, but the NFL is America's game.
Right.
Got your Monday night franchise that they've done, and now you've got your Thursday. I'm more in line with the Thanksgiving Thursdays or maybe the Christmas Day games instead of the Thursday night games. Again, I'm a creature of habit. A lot of these players are that, and a lot of them will tell you, and if they aren't, they're lying. They do surveys and they come out. Please don't make us go overseas.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Let us stay home.
Well, and you and I were talking, and you were saying you weren't a big fan, of course, of those overseas games. But going back to kind of our NASCAR discussion, I think one thing that hurt NASCAR years ago was the fact that they were taking away a lot of the southern tracks, the roots of the sport, and running races out in different parts of the country. And I think that turned off a lot of the traditional fan base a little bit when they started taking races away from places like Rockingham and Darlington, which they are going back to Darlington this week. But so they kind of I think to a certain extent, you got to appreciate them wanting to grow the sport on a global level, but at the same time, at what expense? Now, I think the difference between, the NFL and NASCAR, obviously, is the NFL is a money-making machine. It's a juggernaut. I don't think that it's going to hurt the league too much to put games overseas from a financial standpoint. But at the same time, you wonder about the health, the players, the travel, all the people, the players' unions, things like that. What are they going to say about that? Because I can definitely see a situation where at some point somebody may have to step in and say, enough's enough. Well,
and I think also you've got to go back and look, and you didn't hear about it as much last year or maybe the year before, but we hear, through our emails and stuff that we get, the football fields over in Europe are not the football fields in the U.S.
Right,
you know what I'm saying? You're playing soccer over there.
You're playing
and over
soccer
here
field,
you're playing football. So I have heard, the fields are in less than prime condition when they get over there, and especially with the weather. You go to Ireland and play. It's raining 6 days a week. I love Ireland, but man, don't see the
tough,
sun that
That's
often.
Like when Tech went over there and played Florida State.
And
always
so
raining.
The fields are a lot different. So look. I'm not a fan of Roger Goodell. I think he needs to move on. I don't. Let's keep it. Let's keep it narrowed down when we go overseas. Instead of having 15, 20 games, let's make it to where they're excited to see us come over and do something like that. So who knows what's going to happen? You said it right. It's a money making. I think it's a corrupt organization, to be honest with you. That's just the way I feel.
Right.
I think Goodell's done a lot of bad things for the sport, and I see him at Jim Kelly's golf tournament in the fall. And a lot of people won't talk to him because it's like you're not doing well by the retired players and things like that. So I just think it's time for leadership to move on and just kind of redirect back into United States. I mean, it is a moneymaker. And one last thing before we get off of this topic, we had talked about there's like an NFL act out there, like I believe it was 1961, saying that you can't play on Saturdays. The NFL can't play on Saturdays from Labor Day to the first weekend of November.
You're right.
And now we've got them playing. Now, obviously, once December comes, we have Saturdays, but now they're trying to move college to Friday nights. Friday nights are for high school football.
See, I've always said that. I've always said that.
Only high school football, and that's the way it should always be. And we're ruining it because now I look forward to seeing a game on Friday night, looking at just seeing who's playing on high school. But you've got to go through 7 ESPN games or Fox Sports games to get to your high school game.
Yeah, I hate that the colleges started doing that, especially later in the year. I mean, some of those rivalry games, like you've got Ole Miss, Mississippi State, or whoever playing on Friday. I think I think Tech and Georgia did that a couple years ago. And so it's one of those things where I've always thought that, and maybe that's because of my time covering high school sports for so long. But I've always felt like Friday night, should be for high school sports. People being able to go out and watch their local high schools and support that.
Well, that's your routine too. That's your routine too, because you're on The Voice, and you don't want to have to be competing with ESPN or any of those others. Because this is your night to be able to, tell the story to the audience.
Yeah, this show is called The Morning Rant right here. Of course, weekdays Monday through Friday, 10 to 11, right here live on the dial. But you can also watch episodes on full video episodes on YouTube, and of course you can check out our podcast edition loaded up on the site every day at sportspigradio.com. Also check us out on social media, the SportsPig on Facebook and Twitter, and The Morning Rant on Instagram, and as we mentioned, YouTube as well, and on the website. I want to lean into this a little bit because I know we're going to talk March Madness a little bit later in the show. We're going to talk some bracketology and some different things. We had a play-in game last night. Howard beating Maryland, Baltimore County, UMBC, the school that knocked off number 1 Virginia several years ago. The first 16 to defeat a 1 there, but they were beaten last night. So again, the bracket officially underway. March Madness officially underway, and we're going to talk about that later in the show. But I do want to lean into it a little bit more and talk a little bit about Roger Goodell, some of the things like that, the league. Kind of since you went there with it, man, I mean, is there anything in particular? You mentioned, with the way that he handles retired players, I think it's an interesting perspective because there's not a lot of people, around here that have the perspective you have of being a former professional athlete to see that side of it. I think they just, fans, a casual fan, someone like myself, sees the NFL as growing. It's a moneymaker, fantasy football, merchandise sales, all these different things. The NFL's growing. Hey, Roger Goodell, outside of maybe some disciplinary things, must be doing a good job. But you have a totally different perspective than the average fan.
Well, I do, and I try not to stick my foot in my mouth most of the time. Roger has
only what you're comfortable sharing.
Yeah, exactly. Well, the thing about the Retired Players Association, in 1988 or 1987, we went on strike, and one of the main reasons we went on strike was that the health care and benefits for the pre-49ers and the pre-59ers, that was very important to us. You go on strike again, I believe, threatened to go on strike, I believe, in 93, maybe 94, and we were wanting to take care of the 60s and the 70s, because you look at those guys, and look, there's a big alumni group in Buffalo, and I see those guys, and I'm like, dang, you're not being taken care of.
Right.
Move forward, 20, 25 years, they've started picking it up. They've started giving us health reimbursement accounts. They've started giving us opportunities to go in and do the new knees and the new shoulders at their expense, which is, there's a limit, but the most times it's completely paid for, which is, I think we earned it, at the end of the day.
I was going to say,
But I get on a little sore subject, and I don't want people to misconstrue this, but I think one of the things that Roger Goodell has made so many people mad about is this social justice period that we went through for the last 6 years.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of us some of my best friends on Buffalo are black athletes, and I mean dear friends that I could call up and talk to, and then I have my other friends and stuff. But there's and even they're like, you know what, this is a little bit overboard. We need to go out, leave it in the locker room, and go out and play football and stop spreading all of this, because all you're doing is you're giving attention to something that's only going to fester, and it's only going to get worse. People's feelings are going to get hurt, and things are going to be said, because as athletes we're heated. We don't know how to keep our mouth shut. And so one thing builds to another. And I just think at the top of the level, Roger could have kind of acknowledged it, kind of like Nick Saban, I heard, acknowledged it. He acknowledged it and said, okay, boys, we've acknowledged it, we're moving on. But that's not what happened with the NFL. And I think Roger, if he would do that and make an effort to acknowledge the injustices that are going on, but we don't have to talk about it 24/7. We know the problems are there. Let's work to get them fixed and move forward. Don't forget them. But move forward.
And I love the response. I think it was, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was Todd Bowles, or was one of the black head coaches they were making a big deal about. This is the first time that a black head coach facing another black head coach in a playoff game, blah, 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 whatever. And he was like, honestly, I hadn't even thought about it. Like it was, they thought that maybe they would lean into that, and I just love the response. It was like, I'm just a coach, like it's not about being black, white. It's not about being this, that, or whatever, And
the problem with that is the media. The media wants to make a big deal about it. And Roger could say, hey, this is how we're going. This is the direction we're going to go. Each team can do the same thing. This is not a political press conference. This is a Buffalo Bills or an Atlanta Falcons press conference. We're not getting into all of this. You want to deal with this, you deal with it on your own time. And I just think there's some things that can be done that can alleviate. And the thing that makes me the most mad, the media. They come in there because they're nitpicking. Look, can you imagine, like you came in, you were rushed to get in here today. What if you had to sit down and I sat here and asked you 15 questions and it's like, okay, I'm not ready for this. Now I'm starting to get mad. Well, imagine how a football player comes off the field, goes and sits in his locker, and 2 minutes later he's got 15 microphones in his face. It's not fair, and to the player, it's not fair to the fan, because things in a heated moment are going to get said, and that's 99% of the time it's usually not good.
No, you're right. I think that's why Marshawn Lynch is so popular.
Exactly.
Hey, that's a great question. Thanks for asking.
Move on.
I love it. I love it. Hot takes, hot mics right here on the Morning Rant with my man John Davis, again, former Buffalo Bill, two-time All-American at Georgia Tech, bringing an inside perspective that you're not going to get just anywhere else. And we appreciate him being right here on the program with us as always. Hey, we're going to take our second break. When we come back, we'll continue the discussion, and we'll dive into some March Madness and some other things along the way halfway through here on a Winging It Wednesday right here on the Morning Rant, the home of ESPN Radio in North Georgia, on the Sports Pig app and online at sportspigradio.com.
98.1 and 93.7 The Sports Pig, where hot takes meet hot mics.
Tired of shouting your business's name into the void and getting nothing but crickets? Your brand deserves more than awkward billboard glances and flyers lining bird cages. Right now, listeners are hearing me ramble on instead of your ad. That's a touchdown for missed opportunities and a fumble for your wallet.
Loose, recovered, Atlanta, game over.
Your ad could be here, making fans laugh, cheer, and most importantly, call you. Go to sportspigradio.com or call 678-454-9552 and get your business off the bench and into the game.
Big opinions of the big games from the big mouths.
Man, I think it's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's the Morning Rant on WPGY, the Sports Pig, North Georgia's home for ESPN Radio.
Sit down.
And welcome back here on a Wednesday, a Winging It Wednesday. Speaking of wings, again, the big Wing and Rock Fest this Saturday and Sunday at the Etowah River Park in Canton. We'll be there. Hope to see you there again. I think Saturday's 11 to 7, Sunday 11 to 6. We'll be there at least a good bit of the afternoon, so definitely come by and say hey to us. We appreciate you being with us right here on a Winging It Wednesday on the Morning Rant. This is the Sports Pig, the home of ESPN Radio in North Georgia. We were talking before the break about the NFL, some scheduling things, some different things. And before we jump into March Madness and a couple other things that we want to touch on before the end of the show, I do want to expand on something else we talked about the other day too, real quick, because for folks that may have missed it if they didn't see or hear the Monday show about the overall play of the offensive line. I thought you had some really interesting takes about, I guess, the technique or lack thereof that's currently being taught.
Well, that's a sore subject. I don't know why you bring that up. Yeah, it's like I've got my old roommate and teammate is a coach out west, and we usually try to talk once or twice a year and how the game's changed, how the money's changed, and how coaching has changed. And I just think it's a disservice for someone who's played to watch. Now, Dave, you know me, I'm a big homer. I mean, I'll watch any type of football that's on. UFL's getting ready to start playing, I think, this weekend or next weekend.
Yeah.
So I'll be watching that as well. And but it's just. And I think in a way Alabama and some of those bigger teams started it a few years ago when they started what we call a zone block. It's basically you just take a step to one area and you shield, and that's all you do. Well, you got Derrick Henry, you got all those running backs from Alabama. All they need's that one little space to get
one
through.
Little crease,
and look what happens, you know. And I just think and look, maybe that's the way the game's going now. Maybe it is. But then again, you sit here and we were talking about the Super Bowl and the poor left tackle for New England. You got to learn how to pass block, because guess what? These defensive ends are good.
Yeah.
And you just can't get out there and be 380 and stick your arms up and think you're going to beat a Watts or Howie Long or Reggie White or somebody like that. It doesn't work. It doesn't work that way.
It doesn't work that way. So what was your back in your days? I mean, were you more of a run blocker? Did you like the pass block game? Where did you tend to fall?
I hated pass blocking. And I loved run block, but we had schemes. We were a big pulling team. So if you go back and look at some of the highlights, my daughter Julia even made the comment during the wedding area. They had a game on at one of the parties that we were beating the Raiders 51-3.
Right.
And I was just running all over the field in the first half. And she's like, my God, I didn't realize you could run like that. And I said, well, your old man used to be able to do, things a little bit better. But I hated, I'll give you an example of the pass blocking. I love to play center. And of course I played guard for most of my life in the NFL.
Right.
But when you're trying to make a team, you've got to play every position. So in Buffalo, or in Houston, but in Buffalo, we used to have periods to where we would go down in the end zone and we would set up the offense and defensive lines, and there'd be 3,000 or 4,000 people sitting there just watching you.
Yeah.
Well, I'm trying to make the team in 1989. I come from Houston to Buffalo. I never played left tackle in my life, but Will Wolford was out. Well, guess who's over there? Bruce Smith. So I'm trying to make the team, and so I'm like, I'll play left tackle. So I get out there.
I'll do anything that's asked.
I get out there. First rep we take, I didn't even see Bruce, and I'm looking over my shoulder. So get back up there. He's great, but he can't be that great.
Yeah.
Second one, bam, gone. Third one, gone.
Gosh,
so I was finally like, okay. And then I started hearing the crowd go, Davis, you suck.
Yeah.
And you need to get out of here. Well, Hester, I hadn't seen her in like 3 weeks. So she was there at training camp and she was just standing there. Nobody knew who she was. And she's like thinking, oh my God, is my husband terrible or what? And so finally we went out to dinner and I told her, I said, sweetheart, I said, it's left tackle. I've never played before. That's Bruce Smith. But the end of that story is to go back to, I love to play center, 2 years at Georgia Tech. So I get up at center when our Kent Hull's hurt, our great center is hurt. And so I'm trying to replace him, or not really replace him, but just trying to step in. Well, Bruce would, run defenses and get over the center. Never beat me once. Never beat me
so
once.
It was just a change.
It's left tackle where you don't know where you literally are on an island.
You got a lot of space out there.
Exactly.
You got to cover,
but I'm at center, and it would make him so mad. He's just like, man, and I'm just like, he's like, what are you doing? I said, dude, I just love to play center.
Right.
You know, and
that's so funny.
I felt good about that. But I think the you know, we, like I said, we were a system team. We pulled a lot. We did a lot of counters. We did a lot of come off the ball blocking. If you go back and look at our films, you just don't see that today. And I just think it's just, and again, maybe being 60 and maybe I should just be a fan and just stop worrying about all that.
You're too invested at this point, man. You're too close to it. You're too,
I think I am. And I just feel like, you just can't see something and just not say something.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. No, I totally get that. I always said, for like a youth football play, like if you're growing up in the game, the best position to play is center, because every kid wants to touch the ball,
right?
That. Everybody wants to be. So, but as the center, man, you're the one guy that touches the ball every play. Yeah. Right? I mean, you're the one that's the spark. I was actually when I was much younger. I never grew into the position, but I played center a lot in youth ball before I got up into high school, and then I was 120 pounds and became a DB. What a switch there.
I will tell you this: when we moved back to LJ in 5th grade, I was a tailback for a day. Okay. And then somebody came in fast. I think his name was Steve Niesemeyer. Came in. We were out at Oakland Elementary School. He came in. He was like lightning. And they're like, Davis, you're on the offensive line. And so that was the last of my running back.
One of the coaches up there, I'm trying to remember who it was. One of the coaches middle school is up in LJ. And he said, first day practice, he said, guys, I want you to grab your sides over here, your love hand, your fat. He said, if you don't squeeze anything, you're over here with the backs. If you can get a handful of something, then you're over here with the linemen. And that's pretty much how they made that determination right there. So, yeah. Appreciate you guys being with us right here on a Winging It Wednesday. Time now for a new segment right here on the Morning Rant.
We got some movies, refrigerators.
It's time to take a stroll down memory lane with the Refrigerator Mover.
All right, so John, we were talking. You've already kind of shared some stories with us right here today as we take a trip down memory lane, but I know you've got another one, and this is your chance right here to tell a story for our audience. It could be high school, your time at college, what have you. So I'm going to let you roll with it right here, partner.
Well, I appreciate it. I've been thinking a lot. Whenever I talk to kids and adults, we're sitting around and they always ask, stories about NFL, and anytime I can always give a story like that, I be honest with them and let them know how it was through my eyes. But one of my best friends, my best friend, Warren Sellers, is a coach over at North Murray. And Warren and he was the first person I met when we came to LJ. And, the word I got later was that when, I was playing football, Warren didn't play football. He was a big baseball and basketball guy, but his dad coached. Yeah. And another mentor coach of ours was Dan Worley.
Okay.
Back when I was in 5th grade. And Warren and I got along, got, little scuffles, the first few weeks. But I heard that he went to his dad and said, coaches could already have their son on the team. Yeah. And so Warren went to his dad. He's like, Dad, you got to get this guy first. And he's like, I don't know anything about him. And he's like, you got to get him. We need to get him on the team. So that's where mine and Warren's history of basketball started back in 5th grade. But going back to what I'd like to try to tell people, there's so many people that influence your lives as you start out young and get older and even into the NFL. And, but one of my fondest memories, and Warren and I talk about it a lot, was our coaches back in 5th, 6th, and 7th grade. They were Dan Worley and Robert Sellers, Warren's father.
Yep.
And but I remember back then to where we ran practices. We're not just out there shooting and lollygagging around. We're actually running practices.
You're out there hustling,
for an hour and a half. They worked us.
Right.
And there's a reason why we would score 50, 60, 70 points a game, because we were pretty good. They had assembled a really good team. But I'll never forget, and hopefully Coach, and I still call Dan Coach because he's my coach. He's one of my first coaches.
They never quit. It's kind of like your parent. Your parent never quits being mom or dad.
Right. So you never forget that. But I remember, Coach, I believe we were at Red Bud, if I'm not mistaken. It might have been Fairmount, and I had gotten a hot head and everything. And of course, all I wanted to do was play.
Right.
And so you remember remember things like this that kind of last with you. But he sat my butt on the bench for the rest of the game. And this, I think something might have happened either before the game or maybe the first part of the game. And I was out of line. I'm sure, I didn't think so at the time, but I'm sure I was out of line. And I just remember, I'll never forget that he sat me down on the bench, and I was just like, I can just see myself staring at him like, what are you doing? Why, I need to be out there. And he kept me on there, and I'll never forget that.
I love it.
And they worked us, but they loved us.
Yeah.
And, and they love us today. Unfortunately, Mr. Sellers isn't with us, but Dan's with us, playing music up in LJ, and, we try to talk sometimes through direct messages and stuff,
sure.
and but those are just the memories. But what my point is that it kind of made me realize, you know what, I need to shut up.
Yeah.
And there is someone higher than me.
There's
that's
an authority,
authority figure.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I feel like that helped us throughout our careers. And I think Warren would say the same thing. There's an amount of respect that you have for your first coaches that are that heavily involved with you during that time. And 5th, 6th, and 7th grade, it's a hard time.
It's a very impressionable time of your life.
And I just thought that they did. I don't think they get enough credit, especially when they do it right.
Right.
I've been on the other end where I've seen coaches do it wrong.
Yeah.
But makes you appreciate the coaches that do it right.
Oh, absolutely.
And it makes you love them that much more.
I love it. Again, a new edition of the show right here with the refrigerator mover headed down memory lane. We appreciate you being right here with us on the Morning Rant. Again, that walk down memory lane brought to you by our friends at Foundation Wealth in Dalton. Hey, we're going to take our final break. When we come back, I promise we will talk some March Madness. All that and much more straight ahead right here on this edition of the Morning Rant till 11 o'clock right here on the home of ESPN Radio in North Georgia on the Sports Pig app and online at sportspigradio.com.
98.1 and 93.7 The Sports Pig, your official home for flag-to-flag coverage of NASCAR.
Tired of shouting your business's name into the void and getting nothing but crickets? Your brand deserves more than awkward billboard glances and flyers lining bird cages. Right now, listeners are hearing me ramble on instead of your ad. That's a touchdown for missed opportunities and a fumble for your wallet.
Recovered, Atlanta, game over.
Your ad could be here, making fans laugh, cheer, and most importantly, call you. Go to sportspigradio.com or call 678-454-9552 and get your business off the bench and into the game.
We bring the heat, you bring the trash talk.
Come on, man. Are you serious?
It's the Morning Rant, live on the Sports Pig app and sportspigradio.com.
And welcome back to the program right here on a Winging It Wednesday on the Morning Rant. Dave Garner, Big John Davis in with you till 11 o'clock this morning as we finish up this last part of the hour right here. Again, the fastest 1 hour in sports talk radio exists right here on the Sports Pig, the home of ESPN Radio in North Georgia. And John, let's talk a little bit here in the remaining moments. Again, later in the week, we're going to talk about our Atlanta Braves a little bit more. But let's jump into some March Madness as we talked about bracket officially getting underway last night. And so, again, looking down the bracket, we kind of went round by round over the last couple of days. We talked about some of our upset picks and things like that. And I'm just kind of curious, now that you've had an extra day or so to kind of look at this bracket, man, what stands out at you as far as your maybe your potential Final Four, maybe your potential national champion?
Well, as I said earlier, I sent my final sheet to my buddy Warren, and he sent me a laughing emoji back saying how soft I was, and then I wasn't willing to take many chances. So I thought I'd go back and do a second one. Now the Geiger one that I went online, I think is a little bit different than this one. So I went ahead and signed up there.
Okay, good. Our friends at Geiger Legal Group, doing their bracket,
trying to win a Georgia Mountains Hospice $10,000.
Hey, there we go.
But the main bracket I came out at the beginning, and we did talk about it, is I picked Duke, Arizona, Houston, and UVA. Okay. I guess there's something about UVA that I really like. I don't know. Michigan to me looked a little harried. played the last time I watched them play, and then of course they came back at the end, I believe, to make a game, and so I put them as the Final Four, and then I just picked Duke over Houston and UVA or Arizona over UVA, and I think that Duke Arizona is a rematch of about 20, 25 years ago. I was
going to say, when they went at it, it's been a while. Yeah, no, I can't argue with that, man.
Duke is, I look, I hate Duke. I am not a Duke fan at all.
Right.
But they just haven't done. I mean, whenever they've made a mistake and stubbed their toe, they've always come right back and just stopped it and made a run. Arizona looks like they're running. Houston looks like they're running. But UVA, I tell you, I know I've got Arizona beating UVA, but in my second bracket is a little bit different. But
you got to have a couple.
And I'll probably have two more by the time Thursday comes around or tomorrow. But I have Duke winning. I don't know. I just feel like they possess the all-around team. And think that they think if they can just don't make any mistakes early in the first two rounds, I think that they'll settle down.
They'll settle down. I talked about it yesterday. I had kind of went through the bracket a little bit. I think I've changed my national champ about 3 times now. I mean, honestly, and it may change again before tomorrow. But kind of looking at it right now, I mean, I look down this bracket. I mean, obviously UConn at 2, but a lot of people really like UCLA, the 7 seed there. I could totally see an upset, perhaps in the second round for that one right there. Another intriguing one for me when I look at the bracket is the Virginia Commonwealth North Carolina game. A lot of these teams like North Carolina, Alabama, Texas Tech, they've had some injuries. I think there was a report that one of the Alabama guards hurt a finger in practice or something. So again, that's a situation there where I still think they get past Hofstra. But again, the door is open for a team like Akron, to kind of be that Cinderella in the Sweet 16. I think the way that I've got it right now, I do have Michigan advancing and basically getting to the Final Four as of right now. I think it's excuse me. I think it's I'm trying not to cough here. I think it's Michigan, Virginia, out of the Midwest. I think in the West right now, I do like Arizona. I do like Purdue. I'm not a Big Ten fan, but I do like Purdue for some reason. So I could totally see, Purdue being that Final Four team that could potentially top Arizona. I'm kind of like I'm like a lot of people at this point about Duke. I'm really on the fence. I mean, you see Michigan State sitting there out of the East, right? Obviously, a team that has a lot of pedigree with Izzo. You see UConn, the 2 seed there. Perhaps a team like UCLA, a 7 seed that could potentially, make a run right there. And then let's not forget about Kansas. I mean, you've got you've got Kansas in that bracket as well. So I like St. John's though, the 5 seed. I think that the hardest one for me to pick out of that bracket is presumably St. John's, Kansas in the second round. I've got in one of my brackets, I've got St. John's basically going to the Final Four, beating Duke in the Sweet 16. But that's one of those I'm going to have to sleep on here tonight to kind of figure it out. And then, really honestly, out of the South, Florida, a team to me that I'm not sure I have a lot of faith in at this point right here. I really, out of this bracket, I do like Houston. I do like the Cougars. Yeah. I think that your national championship could very well be. I have to go back. I filled out a couple, and I'm not exactly sure, who all I had. Excuse me, in both of my brackets, but I think I've got Houston and Arizona maybe in a national championship. I think, and one of them right there. Do like the Cougars again? They were so close over the last couple of years, so I think Houston definitely a team that can make a run. So it'll be interesting to see kind of what happens.
Yeah, well, and then my second alternate plan, I'm a big Kansas fan as well, and now that St. John did what they did to UConn, I'm a St. John fan.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's St.
Aren't we all?
Yeah, exactly. Anything to hurt the Hurleys. But that if they can get through the first round, I think the St. John Kansas game is going to be a great game. I just don't know enough about St. John's to say how far that they can make the run.
Right.
I got Kansas beating them, and then I got Kansas beating Duke, and it goes back again. I told you the other day I'm a big Tom Izzo fan.
Oh yeah,
and so
absolutely. Michigan State,
but then you got the old classic Kansas this Michigan State game, and I'm going to go with Kansas.
Right.
In this one, I am in a way a Big Ten basketball fan simply because they play rough, they play hard.
Yeah.
I think the officiating lets them play, and I think that's a surprise to some, especially the ACC.
Right.
And maybe the Pac-12 or whatever, but it might be a little bit softer. So you might see an Iowa or a Purdue come in there, or Iowa State and
Sure.
beat you up. Iowa State looks pretty impressive the last week and a half of the stadium, or last week and a half of the season. But I've got Houston beating Iowa, and then I've got Virginia again. I sit here and say, man, I really, really like Virginia, and I've got them in the Final Four. But then I have Houston beating Virginia in the championship.
Right, there you go. Yeah.
That's number 3. So I'll let you know what number 4 and 5 is.
Yeah, I'm going to say
next week.
I've got to get to 4 and 5. I got to get that tonight. I got to get those brackets filled out as well. By the time this thing's over with, I'll have Kennesaw State winning a national championship too. I think at some point. When you're trying to pick the upsets, I think the biggest thing is you got to play the percentages. You got to play the math.
Yeah.
And here's a stat I looked up yesterday because we're talking about on the show earlier in the week. 12 out of the last 14 years, one of the play-in teams has made it to the Sweet 16.
Wow.
If not further. And there's been a couple times where they've made it Final Four, Elite Eight. And so, to me, if you're playing the percentages, all right, and you're doing this for money, which I'm not, but if you are playing the percentages, you got to think that, if 12 of 14 years an 11 seed has been able to make the Sweet 16, I think you have to look at that playing game and you have to say, okay, if I'm going to try to be aggressive and pick it, who's it going to be? Is it going to be Miami of Ohio or SMU beating Tennessee? Do you stay away from it altogether and say this might be the third year that hasn't happened out of 15 years? Or do you pick Texas and North Carolina State over BYU? And I got to say, honestly, I could totally see BYU with the year they've had. It would not shock me at all to see either Texas or North Carolina State beating BYU in that first full round. Now, again, the play-in game for those guys, I think it's tonight. I think
Texas won.
Oh, Texas won.
Texas,
okay, yeah.
NC State came back by 9 in a minute and a half, and then Texas hit a great jump shot at the end to win the game. So
I think I'm going Texas, man. I think I may take Texas over BYU right here.
And again, that was a hard one for me as well, but I'm going to take BYU. I just think some of listen to me, I'm a football guy. I'm acting like I'm some type of an expert, but just by watching them, and you just kind of get the feel of how big they are, and I like a big old team that's just rough and tumble, and because there's some intimidation that's involved there, and that kind of rattles teams,
right?
But as far as going back to the is it VCU North Carolina,
Virginia Commonwealth,
Virginia Commonwealth, I don't think the ACC is going to get out unscathed.
Right.
I think there's going to be something that's going to happen to. I think. Let me put it this way. I think it's going to be North Carolina before it's Duke.
Right. Yeah. I definitely think so too. Yeah. And I mean, I'm kind of selfishly cheering for Miami of Ohio.
Right.
Again, another one of those play. Did they play last night?
No.
They had. Okay. No. They must play. They played.
And they fought hard. Everybody's like they don't need to be in. They don't need to be in. They don't. I mean, but dude, when you go 31-0 during the season, they have the right. Okay, so now we're going to, instead of having 4 play-in games, we're going to have 14 play-in games.
Right.
Again, it goes back to what are we going to do next? I think Miami of Ohio definitely deserves to be in.
Yeah, I don't think there's any question
and
about
they'll show
that.
us. Listen. That's why Thursday and Friday are the 2 biggest days.
The least productive work days.
Exactly
for the workforce.
Yeah, exactly. The businesses can either just bring TVs in and just have them casually
just
sitting
chalk
around.
Just chalk it up for what it is.
Exactly.
Hey, we're just going to lean into it right here.
I'll have to talk to my son. John Henry works down at the King and Queen buildings, and I'm going to ask him if they brought some TVs.
Are they? Yeah, I was going to say. I mean, at that point, you might as well at least pop in during your lunch break right there.
Exactly.
But yeah, I would love to see Miami of Ohio just because of all the talk about them not being in. They did lose during the tournament, but then they come back. They still get the 11th seed, which I think they were already kind of penciled in for regardless.
Yeah.
SMU though is not a team to sleep on. I mean, they're pretty talented even though they're an 11. Tennessee in the second round, you'd have to think as well as they're playing. SEC, they're being of course a 6th seed. But again, to your point, I don't think the SEC is going to be unscathed either,
right.
With all the teams they have in that first round either. So I could totally see an upset right there.
Well, and one of the things you have to look at as well is that just because you're, being an 11th seed is not bad because it's the pecking order. You've got how many conference champions that are already going to be put in place in the bracket. So if you put, this SMU's not any good, they're 11th seed. That's not necessarily true. That's just because of the pecking order and where they have to put them because of where they've put everybody else in front of them.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you got to take care of that first 32 teams or whatever,
right?
And then you start filling in, and they come in and say, "Oh, hey, NC State's 14." I said, "NC State's not a bad basketball
They're really
team.
not, yeah.
But
They're really not.
So 14's kind of, I wouldn't sleep on them.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's those examples of that.
Selfishly, I would love to see Kennesaw State beat Gonzaga, but I'm not sure that's a good draw for them, being that. But you never know. I mean, like I said, you have 15s over 2s, you have 14s over 3s. I mean, it's certainly not unheard of right there.
Oh, no.
We talked about earlier in the week, of course, the 12-5 matchups as well. We're about out of time right here on the show, but appreciate you guys being with us right here. Get those brackets filled out. Go to Geiger Legal on their social media and get into their bracket challenge as well. It's totally free to play. $1,000 in your pocket if you win, and $10,000 to a charity as well in your name. John, thanks for being with us so much right here. Some good football talk today. We'll talk Braves over the next couple days, but man, as always, you brought it today, man. Hot takes, hot mics.
Always glad to be here, Dave.
There we go. I love it. All right, going to wrap things up for this Winging It Wednesday edition of the Morning Rant. Chuck Oliver is up next right here on the Sports Pig. Appreciate you guys being with us as always here on Wednesday midweek. Once again, another week. Going fast right here on the Morning Rant. Once again, check us out on social media. Again, the Sports Pig on Facebook and Twitter. Morning Rant on Instagram, and full video episodes of the show available on YouTube. And, of course, also the podcast version on our website at sportspigradio.com. Thanks for being with us so much. We've enjoyed it. Another Winging It Wednesday in the books. Tomorrow, Thirsty Thursday, right here on the Morning Rant. Until then, appreciate you guys being with us right here on the home of ESPN Radio in North Georgia. That's the Sports Pig app and online at sportspigradio.com. And as always, each and every day, we end the show by saying the same thing. If you don't know, you better ask somebody. We'll see you tomorrow right here on the Morning Rant. Thanks for being with us.
98.1 and 93.7 The Sports Pig, your official home for Georgia Bulldogs basketball.